City Commission special meeting and workshop agenda to order. It's Monday, May the 4th, 3 p.m. Please join me in a prayer and then the Pledge of Allegiance. Father, thank you for this meeting today. Lord, we're just so grateful for you and your mercy over our lives and over the city of Clewiston. We just thank you, Lord, for your wisdom and guidance as we make decisions today. Lord, that they'll be the best for the city and especially the best for what you have planned. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, any additions or changes to the agenda?
No, sir.
All right, public comments. At this time, if there's anyone that has a public comment, you're more than welcome to speak. If it's an agenda item, you're welcome to wait until that agenda item and come up at the microphone at that time and state your name and address. All right, seeing none, we'll move on to resolution. Item number 1 is resolution 2024-012. It's a resolution that authorizes an application for the U.S. Congress for congressional appropriation for the fiscal year 2025 community project funding to create a comprehensive public utility master plan. And Manager, if you'll update us on that.
Okay. The commission, of course, has discussed this previously, this topic. I participated in a invited meeting with representatives from the district that was hosted by our congressman and Scott Franklin's staff, and they went over the particulars of this year's program. It's a little different than the past couple of years, but it's nothing I don't think we can overcome in terms of meeting their deadline. They only gave us less than 3 weeks to get it done, so this is one of the steps that's required is for the commission to approve a resolution formalizing the request and as an indication and have a public meeting at which people can comment. And so that's the purpose of this. And I'll be glad to answer any questions but on the scope of it. But essentially this would be for our water and our wastewater utilities to assess the current systems we have and plans for extensions to serve future developments and so forth, and for our wastewater and water treatment plants, and for our future reuse plant, reuse distribution system, not plant. I'll be glad to answer any questions, but the cost is just under $600,000 estimated, and that would be the total of our request, and staff and I work to get the application in before the deadline.
Is any of this required for the water treatment plant expansion project?
It's part of it. Obviously, that will give us the ability to serve additional areas, and with some of the expansions towards the airport of our wastewater force main, and in the legislature this time is consideration for doing a similar force main to the southeast, to the Hookers Point area that the county has requested legislative funding for. It will take into consideration those and the impacts that would have on the capacity needs for the plant. So it will have impact on the permitting and so forth.
All right, I'll read this by title. A resolution of the City Commission of the City of Clewiston, Florida, authorizing an application to the U.S. Congress for a congressional appropriation for fiscal year 2025, the community project funding to create a comprehensive public utility master plan for the City of Clewiston, providing an effective date and for other purposes.
Move that we approve resolution number 2024-0112.
Second.
012.
Okay,
sorry.
Motion by Gardner, second by Thompson. Any other questions or discussion by the commission? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, item number 2 on the agenda. Another resolution, 2024-013. and I'll go ahead and read that by title, and then we'll discuss. It's a resolution of the City of Clewiston, Florida, authorizing applications for small county outreach program grants with the State of Florida Department of Transportation, which, if approved, will provide funding for the road repair and overlay of the Herbert Hoover Dyke Road and a section of Aztec Avenue within the City of Clewiston, providing for an effective date and for other purposes. Randy, if you'll update us on.
Okay. You'll recall the last few years we've applied for SCOP funding. We used SCOP funding for the completed that project, I guess it was last year, for the eastern portion of Ventura Avenue. Last year we applied for funding for North Francisco and for to the SCOP, and that was the priority project, and the secondary project we applied for was the Herbert Hoover Dyke. We were successful and funded in the upcoming budget year for SCOP funding for North Francisco Street. We've already engaged the engineers, and that project's being designed and fleshed out. The Herbert Hoover Dyke, we were not successful in getting funding, which is not unexpected. Typically, you would only get one, but we now have it in the hopper, and our hope is that resubmitting that this year will get funded. So we're recommending that as the priority project, and that will tie all of the projects together with the new bridge back to 27 quarter. We also are recommending as a secondary project this year Aztec, and that's the eastern portion of it, from W.C. Owen to South Francisco Street intersection. I'd like the engineer to, and Danny will be here if he's not already. He'll be here shortly. He'll have some, he can answer any questions, but if he would go over the scope of these two projects, that would be helpful. Thank you, David.
Dave Trudeau with Johnson Engineering. The first one, we'll go over the Herbert Hoover Dyke. As Randy mentioned, we submitted for it last year. Did not get funding for it, but essentially it's a mill and resurface, updating some of the drainage, tying into the C21 project. So it'll be a brand new road from North Francisco to C21. There's
go
ahead.
On the east end, the big dips.
Yeah, there's some minor drainage improvements to fix that as well, included in this.
I wouldn't call that drainage. It needs some reconstruction there. The subsurface needs to be replaced.
Correct. Yeah. It will be, those drainage improvements are included in this as well. I mean, those dips on the southwest corner, I believe, of that intersection kind of dips down. I think that's what you're talking about. Yeah, that'll be reconciled, it'll be improved as part of this. So,
Randy, did we ever go after any funds from the contractor that did some of that damage to the road?
They did some other stuff as part of their HHD, but there was I know that the road, that actually the dip you're talking about in particular was already bad. The city had put up a sign even before their project started because it had been a failing of the pipe underneath it for years, I guess. And so
Then it got worse. That's why.
It was worse than some. They did some improvements, but no compensation was offered or received for any of those. And based on the feedback we got from the congressional folks, they didn't offer up anything. The one other piece of that is we'll also be improving the walkways to a bike path width or a multi-use path on that side of that road, same as we're proposing on Francisco for that section.
yeah. Any questions on HH? Oh, the other way. And then on Aztec, it's a similar type mill and resurface, fixing some minor drainage. There is a sidewalk on the north side that goes about 2 blocks. We're going to extend that sidewalk all the way to North Francisco just for connectivity, but it's 24 feet wide already, so it's really wide enough for as wide as we want today. So talking with Danny and Randy, we didn't feel like we needed to widen that for any bike paths or anything else. So this one's a little bit simpler, a little bit more simple. But it's a little bit longer as well. So,
Is there anything we can? Sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, y'all might be satisfied, I'm not. I think that road, especially in that section of Aztec, needs to be 3-lane with the bike path and with the sidewalk.
Yeah, I would agree. The only thing, Mayor, as you and I have discussed, is the SCOP can't be used as a source for widening of
It's
that
just for
lane.
improvement.
It's for basically maintaining. You can add sidewalks that's missing, like here, and we do intend to add that on the north side. And but it can't be extensively widened for capacity. We can pursue other sources for that.
But so if we receive, let's say, SCOP funding for that Aztec, are we then tying ourselves down by a narrow road?
No, we
Or
can.
we know that in the future we need a wider road.
We can still widen it. It just would require some other source of funding for that.
I don't know if you could get that easement on the south side.
I don't know how much we've got there. Do you know the width of that right of way on Aztec?
I don't know if we could get that easement on the south side.
To widen it further, you're saying?
Yeah, with that rail being there.
How much do we have? Is it 60 or?
No, it's not 60 there.
No, it's not 60 because the road.
We'll verify that for future widening potential, but
I think it's like 20.
Is there any way we can improve the crossing, the intersection there at Olympia, especially for pedestrian traffic? Yes,
we can certainly look. Well, Olympia's, that would be, is that in the area?
it's at the end.
That's on the.
Right at the end.
It just goes.
No,
to
that would be
WCO.
on this is only going to WCO and
Goes
east,
over.
yeah. So we can certainly look at that for some other project, but it wouldn't be.
Was this road picked as the urgent one in the city?
Condition is part of it. We looked at the concept of rerouting or encouraging people to go that route for staying off of 27, a local bypass route, if you will, and the absence of sidewalks to the east. When you got them on the west side, I think there were some other, the engineers had done some evaluation of a number of our streets, and since this is considered to be at least a minor thoroughfare, along with, it fell into the same grouping that SCOP has been real popular for use of with DOT.
Because the condition of the road isn't that bad, other than where the property owners have busted up the asphalt, bringing trucks in and out. Is that gonna be a problem in the future where we repave this and they're gonna continue to come in and out and bust up the edges?
That's one of their routes that we did in Aztec.
No, on and off. The businesses that's on there, concrete plant,
Some of them park on
all
the
that
right
right
of way.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can enforce if.
The only damage I see is from adjacent property owners to the road.
That didn't happen to me, recently. That's been there for many years.
Yeah.
That is an industrial section.
Yeah, and the east, further east, it's not in great shape as you get near the fairgrounds too. There's some bad areas in there. Those were the primary reasons. SCOP tends to, based on the feedback we've gotten, if you go for high profile thoroughfares, those are more likely to be funded, and particularly if there's a connectivity, because you now have a SCOP improved Francisco Street south. We'll have a north. You've got that adjoins it, and of course what we're doing on Ventura, which is not as suitable for a bypass, if you will, because you have to go around the hospital site and some of those considerations. So this one, and also the work that the increased traffic that was with some of these major capital projects that have gone on in the area, that's been the focus, and it was, as was just pointed out, it is the industrial area, so the street needs to be up to speed or it'll get in bad shape quick if you don't resurface it. And it's such a big expanse, almost 1.7 million, I believe is what.
Any aprons included in this?
Any driveway aprons? I don't believe that's the intent. If there's some repairs, we can do some minor repairs, but
This is
We
a
can look
project that we could require aprons that aren't there, that if people are using them, like we've done on other street projects.
Yeah, so we can take another look to see what I think that as long as you're under, was it $2 million?
Million's kind of
That's
their
sort of the
sweet spot.
cap, so we can see what else can be
Similar
accomplished.
to what the new owners of the concrete plant, they redid their
Yep.
ramp to their sand holding. They did an awesome job.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, that looks good. It may be that we,
Water off the road and sending it down to where it needs to be. So if we could do that on the rest of the industrial properties there that are using it that way.
okay,
But I sure would like to see that section 3 lane just because of the industrial traffic. And there is a lot of foot traffic to the high school. I see a lot of kids walking that route.
Sidewalk.
yep.
Any other questions?
What is an apron? What do you mean by an apron?
Coming off the main road into the driveway, the
Okay.
initial.
Yeah, what we did,
Right there.
yeah, we just did it on the East Ventura section, on the right-of-way portion, the portion of the right-of-way, we did a short apron, even if they didn't have a paved driveway, because it protects the edge of the street from damage.
Okay, any further discussion? Entertain a motion.
Second.
Motion by Highslope, second by Thompson. Any further questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, item 3 is the change orders for the bridge project. And as we found out at the last meeting, there was money left over from that project that we get to spend, hopefully, in a positive manner to upgrade that area. So I don't know who's gonna talk about the upgrades, Randy or
All right,
Dave?
if I can just make a few introductory, I had a memo that was included in the agenda, so I won't go back through the details of that. I think Commission's very familiar with the history of this project, as well as the community. We do have some unencumbered funds that are detailed in the report, as well as 43,100 in county shared state boating improvement funding that we would recommend be applied to this. And then to meet the need that we are recommending, we also are suggesting supplementing with using the CRA funding, and you have a report on the next item on the agenda included that shows how much is available in what's referred to as the expansion area, which this is within the expansion area. And we need to show some progress to spend some of those monies in both areas. And so this is, we believe, important use of a portion of that funding to meet the minimum requirements to award a contract change order to complete some of these much needed improvements. I'll stop at that and let the engineer review the scope of you have maps, and I think he's going to display those to review the scope of that. So, Dave?
So a while back, we presented 2 options for the parking lot. It was decided that option 2, which is up on the screen here, was the one that we should pursue. We then got in the details of that option, and we said, hey, what can we build now? What can we build after we get a district permit modification? So as you can see here in the orange, or the yellowish orange, that is an area of additional impervious that we would need a district permit modification for. So
And our hesitancy to do anything with that area, and it's the larger scope of it, is the timing, and we don't have enough money, and also we want to close out this C-21 project while the money's available with the contractor we have, so we don't want to protract it because we're not sure how long that permit would take. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, and so then we said, hey, what can we do now? Which we'll get into in just a minute. And then more recently, Randy and Danny and Lynn and I sat down and say, hey, can we do that little back sliver on the left side? Would that trigger a permit modification? Because that left side of the parking, we were going to reorient the striping to have full pull-in truck and trailer striping with that extra space.
Right now, there are really short spaces on that end. They aren't sufficient without them getting all the way on the grass or backing up near the bridge to accommodate a boat and trailer.
Yeah, those far left ones are actually oriented the other way. So you pull through, you back your trailer in, you dump your trailer off, pull your truck off. So that would provide more space. So talking with our drainage expert on the project, he said we can go ahead. We have surplus drainage capacity. We can do that little strip. Then we had the contractor price all of this out with the option of the parking lot modification. There's a South Road improvements with extending the sidewalk, and then there's some North Dyke Road improvements as well. And here's a kind of big picture of what we had them price. So the parking lot work in the middle is about $208,000. That includes restriping, seal coating, reorienting the stripes.
Is that the yellow?
That's the yellow. Yep, that's the yellow.
The flow of traffic's gonna stay the same?
The flow of traffic,
I think it'd make more sense, just to the left of the first row, all to be going that direction now.
Yeah, it does modify the current traffic direction.
So that's the current, not the new one?
so this is the new one.
That's the new directional. And where are you referring to, Greg?
So right here, the far left there, the stripes. There you go.
Right here. I think it'd be best if they were all going this direction and come back here. These are all both going this direction. These should be going this direction. There's no more connection here.
The only thing, if I remember correctly, Danny, you're a boater. People would come in here. Now this is moved over because the existing road is here. Over and create spaces where the existing road is. Just the one.
If this is the only inlet this way, people are backing their boats up. All these people are gonna be waiting.
So hold on
And
one
then
sec.
this is gonna be a bottleneck
So-
right here during tournaments. And
So there's
heavy-
two ends. There's one on the right, and then like Randy, like you were saying, there's one second over.
Right here?
That's an in.
Well, the direction of parking don't make it an in. You're not gonna go against that.
Well, it's in terms.
But it's wide enough for both.
Drive in and go to this side or that way. That's over.
Well, let me tell you I think the parking should be the other direction.
I think part of that was they would come in, go around and park here.
Yeah, that's my point. When you come in and go around heavy traffic, these are going to be people stacked up waiting to back their boats in, and all this traffic's gonna be backed up in the road.
One of the things we're gonna maybe change a little here is a staging area. That's what we're gonna look at. Like maybe 6 boats. They'll be sitting back here, they're gonna come in, like this back in. You can see once they pull out, they're gonna be pulling in here, or they go up here, and they come in like this, and they start pulling in, just like this. All the flow. And then they come in. That particular area, we're gonna put some staging, is what we're looking at.
For you to like pull off to the side and wait.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, because if you put these this way, that's where you're looking at. Problem is they'll be cutting against this lane of traffic to go in.
They can't drop their boat off.
And try to get to the ramp. We'd rather them go around.
Did we have tournament individuals?
Yes.
Come look at this and-
Raymond had access to the other version that we had, the green, the one that you had. He looked at this and they were very comfortable with it. Because it's
Just thinking you may have to cut off,
As long as the marina's
like
comfortable with it.
those right there could be in the way. You may have to get rid of those.
Yep. Because
So
you're gonna
people
be.
can
you're gonna
back in.
be, Yep. Understood.
well, and you know that it was a concept drawing, so it might have to be tweaked on the ground once they lay it out. But essentially, they did give us input, and this is the design that was agreed upon. And they strongly encouraged us to do this over here, to change these.
So all the ones in the picture, maybe except for the red dots, are truck and trailer.
Yes.
All of the green dots are truck and trailer. The red dots are car only or truck only.
And the totals are up in the corner, but they increase, as I recall. And of course, we're not quite getting all that was in the original plan because of that phase 2 part, unless we do that later. You're not gaining those few spaces, but it's at least a wash or an improvement over what's there now in terms of number of spaces. And the overflow area is actually better organized on the west side, the other side of the bridge. It's much better, and we're talking about putting stop blocks through there to organize it, even though it's grass. have them where they can go to the stop blocks and keep it organized very well over there. Although they did a really good job in that huge tournament we had a few weeks ago. Yeah, it really worked well.
Adding to this.
Yeah. But Danny did bring up the point about staging, so we want to look at that and see if there's a way to improve the vehicle staging area.
We'll kick that middle aisle over to give you some space there. Okay. So the yellow area is mostly the parking lot work. It includes the medallions, the 4 medallions that we've been, there was previous change order for the conduit. We've got, going to add some lighting to those medallions. The picture of the medallion was approved a while back. It's on the left there. The additional paving that was part of phase 2 that's going to be included in this is about 50 grand. And then the south entry road work is about 171 grand. Again, these prices were provided by the contractor.
And just for purposes of that, maybe you can review for the next one, what's being extended here. That would be good, the sidewalk and bike path.
Yep.
But before you get there, Dave, I know on this map that you showed, the one that we're looking at, it doesn't, you talked about lighting, but this map doesn't indicate where the light posts are at, correct?
No,
But
there's
some on
already
the west, the
installed.
new west. Okay.
Yeah, and the only ones we haven't put the new poles in is in the western of
Right.
this area over here. We've already got it bored. Danny, you want to talk a little bit about what we installed there? Good point.
Through here, all this is we set a couple here, and we're gonna set a couple of them here. And these poles are coming out. All of these all the way back to here.
Okay.
We'll feed everything from here, whereas it's fed from here.
And you've already done a bore
Yeah, it's all
under
done.
from over here, and those are wired up, ready to go.
Yeah,
We got the conduit there. Just got to pull the wire and set the post. But we
All
wanted to
these are
wait
out.
till the reconfiguration is done. But you'll have those dual head, I
Yes.
guess, lights that are in the existing easternmost area now. Those will be mimicked on this side
Yep.
and along the highway out here. Dave, you cover the walkways.
So the one thing I want to point out before that, this is not showing the striping being flipped here. It was a last second kind of change that Randy and Danny and I talked about. So this will be flipped. But this is just showing the parking lot. As I mentioned, we're going to update the parking bumpers, the seal coating, maximize the layout, make some tweaks as we work through it. Then getting into the South Road, or the Herbert Hoover Dyke entry road here, extending the sidewalk to have connectivity with C21, making the bike path or walking path here connectivity to C21, and then updating the cross section with 2 bike lanes, as you can see here and here. They'll just be striped. It's not wide enough to have a separate bike path, but right there it is wide enough to have the striping for it. And then you can see the cross.
And this will mirror what we plan to do with the HHD project if it gets funded, going from there back to North Francisco.
Yeah, so this will be widened further to the east here with that SCOP funding. I think that's what you're saying, Randy.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we had another slide there.
Dave, just to make sure I understand it correctly, the option 2, which is the map that you're saying that we're going with, that does allow vehicles to park there at the base of the bridge, right? There's 4 there, is that correct?
Right here.
But they're gonna be going against the traffic.
No, they would be flipped as well, right?
So yeah, we can
Yeah,
flip
all
those as
of
well.
them.
So then,
Yep.
so if you're gonna park at the base of the bridge, you gotta go all the way over to you gotta make a right at the first parking lot and then come all the way around?
No. Randy's standing, you can
Well, we
go to the second parking lot and make your loop around.
Show that one, that option too.
I just noticed when I'm up there that there's a lot of people that park their cars there
Yep, there's.
and they walk. So for them to have to go to that first parking lot, make a right, and then come all the way
I was just gonna
around.
say,
Yeah,
the signage is gonna be a nightmare.
They are oriented the way you're saying.
Well, but then then the roadway's showing everybody coming out that way.
Yeah,
They're going to go against the traffic.
That's a good point. So we can reassess this little area here. Obviously, the boat trailers and trucks need to be, and look at what's safe here, but it would be going against the do not enter if you
Right.
that way. But
Because I know it's going to happen. They're not going to go make a right by the boat basin and then come all the way. Yeah.
through the parking
They're gonna pull right in here and back in.
Yeah, the only time it would
Where are
be
they
an
gonna-
issue, obviously, is if the lot's full of boat trailers, and we do have these few down here as well, but that would be further for them to walk, to go walk. So, I guess that's something we would want lesser size as well.
But why couldn't we just flip those the same direction of the traffic or
Well,
the
they'd have
or
to-
of the
they'd
boat
have to be able to
ones?
drive in to go to them.
Right, but if we flip them to mimic the boat
I
spots
thought
there,
that's the way they were, to be frank with you, when I remembered it, but.
then it doesn't
well-
encourage people to go against the traffic.
Yeah,
you
we'll
know?
flip them. There's no issue with that. I think it was just we were trying to get as
Gonna have to
as
drive
many
to,
spots
like,
as possible in
We'll
there.
have signage here,
Amazing,
do not
but-
enter wrong way, because we're having an issue now, Danny was telling.
Top of the levee, we put some signs today, bigger ones.
Well, you would lose some spots, but you could do, what you did here, you could do it on this end. You would lose maybe 1, 2, 3, 4 boat spots.
Yeah, that's a thought too, well, it's got two cars.
Got 2 cars there already, yeah.
What people will do, obviously, is they'll do that. Don't want to encourage too much of that, because if it's traffic coming, they will be at fault going against the signage and whatever. But, as reality, that's what people will do. But it's a good point for us to further look at. And that's it.
You have more questions for Dave or anything else? Randy, you want to go over the dollars so everybody's all clear?
Essentially, where we will be, you see the sources of what we've at this point estimated. We come up a little over 70,000 short with funding, so I've suggested that we be prepared to add up to 75,000 to this project. We will have some additional engineering costs associated with it, but we're still working on that for the change order to the contractor. If we go with all these improvements, we think it can be done, and those funds would come from or I'm suggesting they come from our CRA funding for this, which is in section 4, which shows that we have for this area of the CRA, and we'll have to go through the CRA board. You are the members of that, and also get any input from our advisory board on the use of those monies, but that would commit 75 of the currently 369,000 that's budgeted for this year.
And this is just sealing and striping, correct?
On the existing parking lot, some of it is new paving.
The parking bumper repairs are included in there as well, but
Yeah, these would be new paving areas. Yeah, and we really have got to do the sealing if we're gonna realign the parking lots or spaces, or it'll really look messy if we don't, because,
You're looking for a consensus today. to
yes,
move
and
forward.
if this is the the direction the board wants to go, we will further go over the details with DOT on the concurrence for the funding that's left in the DOT funded projects from the legislature. We will further work out the details with engineers and so forth, and come back for formal action on a change order at your next meeting, because we'd really like to get this going soon, because contractors winding down their activities on the major project. They're down to a very short punch list of things.
got an email from them already asking if this was approved. So they're ready.
I think it would be a nice touch to finish up finish it up right. I think we need to do it. I mean, the funds are available except for 75,000, which the CRA it already has. This is in the CRA, as you guys know.
And
I think it's more of an investment than an expense, as we can see our last several bass tournaments, how many people turned out. It'd be nice to have a complete facility up there.
Okay, I guess I'm a little confused. Are we in the special meeting or in the workshop, or where are we at on all of this, and what can we do
Well,
and not do?
we did them as a combined meeting in case you want to do any actions
Okay.
on anything else.
Yeah, we can take action, even though this was kind of a workshop to see.
We didn't want to presume that you're ready to go with this design unless you discussed it.
Just a consensus, right?
Either way, if y'all want to do a motion or a consensus, either way.
Good with,
Do we have to have confirmation from the CRA?
To appropriate the CRA monies, you will have to sit as that board and act, and we'll have to advertise that.
we could do it by our
We can
next
do it
meeting.
the next regular meeting.
So, I mean, it looks to me like there's a consensus to move forward with this and have it on our next agenda.
That would be preferable if we can do it that quick. That would be the way to go. Even if we have to make it contingent on the state funding uses till DOT gives their concurrence, which usually, hopefully we'll know by then, because they've been aware of these discussions and all the details pretty much. With the exception of that little widening of the pavement, I don't know that we've actually talked to them about that. But part of the rationale there is it seemed foolish to me to do all the parking lot except that last row and then come back later and pave it and try to flip it then. That just doesn't make sense to me. We'd have to waste money to double stripe it and seal it twice. Okay.
It sounds like there is a consensus.
Any other points, David or Danny, that y'all want to make on the C-21 project? I think it's been a tremendously positive project.
Want to lose the money.
No, we definitely don't want to leave any money on the table, but
In this scenario, if we don't get extra funding, at least let's reseal the parking lot and use the funds to get moving.
Right, right. Well, when he writes his bid, can he do it separate like that? Just in case something goes south, we can say eliminate this section.
he did. We have a detailed breakdown of the quotes from the contractor.
Yeah, we gave him what to do and reviewed it line item by line item, and Stan Tech did a review as well, who's the CEI on this. So we're still, it's not going to go any higher than this. It may come in a little lower after we're negotiating a few specifics, but
We could cut down some of the engineering expenses.
That's always good.
That's right.
Yeah, and that's
none of that's
important.
listed here.
That's important. We want to make sure we.
It's up to contract.
That's right. Got to make up some of our funds.
Randy,
Just a quick question over on this spot. These two areas will be graded for parking. I mean, it's pretty graded now, at least the one section, but
Where at, Mayor?
on the
on
left side,
the
yeah,
overflow, yeah, those in that light gray section.
This one is currently, it's sodded and was, got a really good base under, and that's where we will be putting in stop blocks later. And we'll do that with post-project, but, like I say, they were pretty well organized in that large tournament. We've had some overflow there since. This area's got a drainage area in it, so we'll have to relocate that or do something different. That's the drainage associated with the bridge project in some extent. May have to, if we go for that future phase 2 work, go further, we'll have to push some of this into some of those developments that were in that master plan or that boating infrastructure plan.
Oh, okay.
We would have to modify this area.
It did use that site, didn't it?
And you know,
Yeah,
well,
there's some of it we did on the left side, but the drainage area, I think,
Right.
cuts part of it off.
Randy, while we're talking about overflow, when we're doing that road project there, the resurfacing, can we look into maybe, doing an apron on that temporary crossing to the other overflow that we had?
Oh, you talking about?
Coming on and off Hoover?
You talking about this way?
Yeah.
Where we were using Sugar's property? Danny's had conversations with them.
I mean, just off the road up to the gate that we
They're
got there.
willing to let us use it. The only problem with it is in wet times, it's.
Well, that's my point.
Yeah, so,
Doesn't drive four-wheel drives either.
yeah, but we don't want them to tear it up.
And off
That's-
that road, if we could just get
No,
down.
No, I understand.
Yeah, so we can look at that as,
Crossing a sidewalk there, that's another issue there. We got
Well-
walkers and
Well, I think we're gonna have
cyclists.
to make those
So I think-
well, that sidewalk section will have to be built to the standard to allow vehicles.
Better to do it
cross.
now than do it later and have to redo it. And
With the overflow people that come and visit, pull.
Yeah, this new sidewalk's gonna be built to a standard that it's not gonna crack up like the existing one does, cause it's what, a 4 inch? And this will
hopefully,
be
hopefully it's
6.
not wide enough where they start using it as a parking lot.
Uh,
They use everything else for a parking lot.
Oh, you talking about along Herbert Hoover Dyke?
Sidewalk, the new sidewalk.
Well, we'll just have to put no parking and enforce it because that's not going to work if they try to do much of. And if we provide sufficient parking within our site plan and with our partner that's allowed us to use it to the south, that shouldn't be a need. Okay.
All right, good. All right, we'll move on. Oh,
Yeah, I
any more?
just want, I mean, we mentioned the CRA several times, Randy, and I
Mhm.
know that we have an advisory board.
Yep.
And I know with people who've applied for the advisory board, where are we on that? And how many openings are there on that advisory board?
I don't recall, but that'll be on your next agenda to report that as well. I'm thinking there's at least 2 vacancies or maybe more, but I do know that it hasn't met obviously in a long time. So we for any of these discussions, like the next one we're going to talk about, we want to have that board active so they can give input on the use of CRA monies going forward. I don't know if this one will be done in time, but if we can, I think we've got at least 3 that are still on it, if I remember correctly. But Kathy will give us an update on that. Desiree.
Okay. Item 4 is Ventura Avenue.
Okay.
Have pictures and we have an update.
Yeah, and essentially just to set the stage for this and then have Dave review what we've already had a consensus agreement on the design side of it by the commission at your previous workshop. The big thing here is in going forward with this, it only makes sense from my perspective, from a planning perspective, that we consider the streets that are to the north of Ventura, where the streetscape project that's already funded and being designed, to tie it back to 227 corridor, Sugarland Highway. These side streets in between, the connector streets, and we've got a map of that in here. But we want to just show you a depiction of the current layout once again that was agreed upon with the roundabout at Central. And you see the connectivity in the intersections of Commerce Street, WCO and Commerce, Central, Bond, and South Dean Duff. And the discussion came about that in the economies of bidding this project out and getting pricing, having unit pricing, doesn't it make sense to also look at these side streets and go ahead and start the discussion on particular areas such as parking, alignments, landscaping, lighting, and some of the same components that we're incorporating into the streetscape of this section of Ventura, and tie them together and use CRA funding for those improvements, because the monies we have from DOT and from the congressional appropriation are all allocated for Ventura and the associated improvements to it. So I'll stop there and let Dave walk you through what he's provided in this, and we can talk a little bit about that.
So unfortunately, not a ton of updates on Ventura. Tetra Tech's still working on a change order to include the roundabout. I mentioned that at the previous meeting. They're still working through that. And the roundabout triggers more survey needs to identify storm structures, to identify things that are going to be impacted by a roundabout. Whereas their previous scope was just kind of a mill and resurface with some restriping. So they're working through that. We expect that here shortly. So unfortunately, not a ton of updates on it. As Randy mentioned, the side streets and the connectivity to 27 and using the CRA funds, you can see here it's a picture of all of the parking is shown in green with a number of approximate spaces, just to kind of get a feel for where parking is and where some improvements could be made. So not a real ton to talk about it, but I know the connectivity to 27 and Ventura would make for a nice kind of a block feel with the landscaping, lighting, walkability, all of that. So,
and put into that in your mindset in evaluating this as we go forward with this discussion, the alleyway that's highlighted that traverses this whole area that goes behind the frontage businesses and cuts through some of the others. Also, there you have the public parking areas, and I counted these up, and it's over 200 spaces in the publicly controlled areas. Obviously, not every space 24/7 would be available, but during after hours events and those kind of things, much of this parking could be available for activities and events and overflow parking. One of the challenges, just to use Bond Street as an example, Bond has already received some of these streetscape improvements. They need to be brought up to date, refurbished, I'll call it. They have the brick paver walkways that need to be refurbished and made look new again. The parking layout there is not a whole lot of opportunity for modification to it, in my assessment. But there are other streetscape things we can do to Bond Street potentially, particularly the lighting and other things that would benefit that street section. And try to work with the private property owners, particularly that one that where the tire place is, to see if there's something we could do from a facade perspective that might keep the airflow they currently enjoy, but make it look better than a chain link fence. To me, that jumps out at me when I walk down it and look, and it
Be lattice work on it.
yeah, something like that, or maybe a more substantial. There's some options that could be done with property owner cooperation. And also in the area of property owner cooperation, and we've talked a little bit about this, is to revisit some of the privately owned parking that might be opportunities for the city to collaborate with the owners and make them jointly publicly available, at least in off hours when those businesses don't need them, with signage, with lighting, other improvements to that area that would make for a better area for everybody. And there's some of those that in particular that benefit from the public parking areas. We've recently, Danny made me aware of what I consider to be an abuse of some of the public parking on one of these streets. I don't want to call out anybody, where they're having people leave their cars there and they're taking them somewhere else to a job. So we need to look at it from a regulatory standpoint. That's obviously not an appropriate use for this area. That's along South Dean Duff. Maybe we put time limits on it or something, signage that would prohibit that kind of abuse. But when you combine this area with a couple of hundred spaces with the East Ventura, or this section of Ventura from Dean Duff back to WCO, and when you look at it with over 100 spaces, it's a pretty substantial area, and particularly if you can get a few private parking lot owners to collaborate with us on mutually beneficial, I'm not talking about the city taking advantage of them, but mutually beneficial access to these areas that would improve the walkability of this whole area, because unfortunately it's very dark. Much of it is, particularly the alley. And
other than a half a block of Bond Street, who walks Bond Street?
We
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you got an old pawn shop, a tire shop on that end, the back door to a restaurant that's no longer
It
there,
surprised
a back door
you.
to-
There's a lot of walk, and they park, and it's full pretty much every day.
Every
at
day.
Peak days, and when you have events like the Market on Bond, I think it would be even better if we can collaborate and get this off-street parking, where you could have more frequent events where you actually close that section of Bond Street to vehicular traffic and make it more walkable. But it needs better lighting. It needs some enhancements. But I know it's a lot of traffic walks this alley. It's amazing how many people walk this alley through here.
A lot of people park over on Dean Duff and even in the Royals parking lot and walk the alley.
They do.
Because
yeah.
that's the only parking.
The only parking they got. So I think, and also the future of Bond Street and maybe some of these other commercial areas. I'm not telling property owners what to do, but I think it will make it for a more attractive rental property if we do our part in terms of streetscape enhancements and safety and security and lighting. It will make people want to locate their businesses there and be open maybe broader hours, because that's something I think that limits it now. Is it's it's mostly daytime use and fairly short schedules. But
And I like what you're talking about with working with private business owners, because I think a lot of people park on Central and would like to kind of walk up behind on through that what could be sort of alley-ish, but it's a little hard with the palm tree and stuff like that that's there now.
and chains and
Yeah.
other things.
Gotta kinda
It
go
could certainly
around
be
all
a
that.
much improved and more inviting.
I prefer to walk through there as opposed to stepping up and walking out on 27. It's just loud and
But to me, there's no better use we could make of this a substantial portion of the CRA money that we currently have than to try to upgrade this whole area in concert with this Ventura Streetscape project and truly create a downtown atmosphere more than we
I
have.
had Danny at our building a couple weeks ago showing him some parking concerns that we have.
Mm-hmm. And we can address
where
those in
there's,
this.
a lip on the sidewalk and a stump. And
Mm-hmm.
essentially there's two fall hazards,
So this, just throwing it out there to see what you folks think. Obviously, we haven't done very much on it yet, other than just the thought process. Dave put together this map to sort of quantify it and how impactful it could be. And if you ride those streets, you'll see pretty quickly that they could use an upgrade, particularly the other ones other than Bond Street. I didn't go further south of it because I felt like this would be a good scope to, but we can look and see if there's any little areas on the south side of Ventura that might present some opportunities as
So
well.
we're talking about repaving, of course, restriping, lighting, landscaping,
Yes.
sidewalks are already there basically.
And any other aesthetic, like any kind of banner programs we want to have. I know we've talked a little bit about that in the past. Any things of that nature that we'd want to do in here. And getting into resurfacing, it would be probably limited to some areas. I don't know that all the streets are actually at a point they need resurfacing at the same time, but we can certainly look at that and the availability of money and the economies of that.
I think when you break it down, if you can give us line by line, it might be only to do lighting, or we might maybe only be able to do one street. So instead of a lump sum, it might help us to make a decision, but I think we should move forward with at least getting some engineer estimates.
Yeah, I'm envisioning some sort of, maybe not quite this detail, but a conceptual, kind of a quick conceptual of each road, how many lights, how many kind of palm trees, what kind of landscape areas, what it could look like. And
I
then,
mean, even if we just improved, the parking lot behind the building across the street and made that look really nice.
Yeah, that
If
might
we
be the
have to
only
take
one
one
we-
project at a
yeah.
time like that,
Yeah.
and maybe the lighting going up to it,
Mhm.
and then in another year, we get another project. we have to do it that way even.
Because the
Because
good,
we can use the CRA money.
yeah, the
to
good
do it.
news is we have, based on this year's budget projection, we'll have almost $900,000 in this area alone that has to be used. And we don't have to use every penny of it, but if you used half of that on this area, I think it would be a great investment.
There been any feedback on the parking? Getting used to the new parking. Like right there is the insurance building on the corner, so people are used to just pulling up to the front door.
Not yet. We haven't approached any of them directly, but other than them hearing it on the street or in the meetings or whatever, I haven't personally had any contact. I don't know if Danny has.
They have no parking around their business now.
I love roundabouts. I'd love to see more roundabouts in the town. I went back and looked at the DOT vision plan for Ventura Road, and this is what it said. This was their recommended for Ventura on the US 27 Clewiston Corridor Vision Plan. They called for the right-of-way is 100 feet wide, but the street components, travel lanes, sidewalks, on-street parking are not well defined. The vision plan calls for a redesign of the street to include a 2-lane cross-section, diagonal on-street parking, landscaping strips between the parking and the sidewalks, and wide sidewalks. The nature of this roadway would allow for a sharo, which is bicycle sharing the right-of-way with vehicles. And I'm just going to pass this down because this is the look that they had recommended. And I go back to the parking. I mean, we already know what happened at Bond Street. By landscaping it the way that we did, using those big islands, it reduced the number of parking on Bond Street, which has continued to be a complaint from the city residents or, people who use it. And so it's just that one page for Ventura. The rest of it was the whole presentation. So I just go back to, we're going to be, in my opinion, harming these businesses and especially the church by taking some of their prime parking away when the DOT plan didn't call for that. The DOT plan had plenty of parking along Ventura, but yet it looked really nice.
Well,
So I'm just concerned. I like the listen, I love roundabouts.
well,
but I'm
this
just
is
concerned.
this design is pretty much a mirror of that. The one you selected, what they
Right,
recommended.
but you look at that one, they got parking in front of all the businesses, whereas this one doesn't.
Well, they didn't remodify it like we're talking about, although they did acknowledge that there had to be modifications. But
That was a
the roundabout wasn't discussed or considered with them at that time.
And I like
but-
roundabouts. I just know the impact because of what we know already from what's going on Bond Street.
I did have a delivery driver approach me one day telling me that he makes a lot of stops on this road to our
Ventura?
commercial businesses, and that he felt like, these plans with the roundabout and whatnot would cause a backup.
Well, his truck causes a backup now. I'm sorry to tell you, but it's awful out here.
Well,
And the
postal-
buses
but
do
the-
it. And
But the postal trucks also create backups on West Ventura, where, because of the way we did that one as well.
But
So-
one way you can accommodate that is to have the side street have parking areas for deliveries. We could designate that. Of course, that takes away some of the parking.
It's from the March 2023 workshop
Yeah.
that we had.
Yep, we had that. And this again it's I think it's consistent with that, with the exception of the roundabout. Although you saw the numbers, it's not a significant loss of parking, but it might not be exactly where they want it. Every business or every building, but they're going to have plenty of parking because this parking, 2/3 of it is empty now, particularly when you go further west at the church and across the street. And of course, hopefully we'll be successful and parking will become a commodity through there, but most of this parking stays empty. I'd guess half the time, if not more.
Right, but the parking that's usually empty is going to stay empty on this map. What we're taking away is the prime parking with the roundabout on those businesses along there.
Just that one corner
And
the
the other
church.
businesses like K Nutrition and, so anyway.
Well,
I'm
it's a
just-
valid
Just bringing
point.
it up that the recommended Ventura Road project from DOT was similar, but yet it did not take away the parking spaces as this plan is showing us now.
And of course, part of that was they pretty much looked at what existed because they didn't do extensive redesign work. But in any event, I think by that to me makes it even more important that we have this off-street parking, public parking available and safe so that people feel safe to park off the street and walk to it. One of the other areas that we could do that is just out of this, where we did the drainage project. But there's some opportunities on the south side that we may want to extend parking considerations down these streets to the south a short distance to make sure that we maximize the parking. But I don't discount what you're saying, Commissioner. It certainly is a consideration.
I
But
just think we need to go back and look at the DOT plan and then, compare them and see what impact. Show the businesses, show them what the impact's going to be. I mean, I like roundabouts. I love them. I'd love them throughout the town. But I already, again, going to go back to Bond Street and the fact that it did reduce the availability of parking on Bond Street, and you're going to do the same thing on Ventura. I just want us to think it through.
of course, I will have to say, Bond Street, I don't know what configuration it had previously. Was it a two-way street before?
Two-way street.
Yeah, when it had a two-way street, I would dare say it doesn't have as much parking as it does now. The one-way, because I was just counting it up, it's 38, 43 spaces for that street is pretty good. By comparison, you look at it, we don't have that many spaces on the current configuration of Central, and it's a much wider street. And so, because it's got the center median, and of course that's very attractive with the trees and so forth. If you took out the spaces that are shown there where they have landscaping on Bond, it would make it a much less attractive street. But it also
have smaller areas.
Well, and we can
versus
tweak
bigger areas.
that as part of this. We can see if there's a way to squeeze more spaces and not get into those sight distance locations where alleys cross, because that's obviously a hazard, and we want to be cognizant of that. But it's good points, and as we do this assessment, and we can certainly look at those things. By contrast, Commercio has the least parking on it, current design. And I don't know the history of that, but that certainly could be improved. Part of it was the uses of the public properties that were there. There's opportunities to improve it as well.
But you don't have people parking on
They're in
Commercial
need.
to go to Bond Street.
No, not the Bond.
And there's not any businesses there. I mean, you have a.
No, I would agree with you. Bond, to me, the best opportunities to work with the owners of the properties to the east and the west to make those joint public-private use. And I've had some experience with that successfully, where the city came in and agreed to, if they would make it joint use, to do the striping responsibility, to put lights up so that it's very secure and safe, and create pedestrian walkways that are safe. And I think that's the best answer for Bond Street, just like they do now, as was pointed out earlier, for the street closure events that we've had on Bond Street.
Yes.
What are you doing about talking to the private owners about what I hear in the
We've not had any discussions as yet. I've researched the history of it, but that would be the recommendation: is we engage in those folks, show them our plans and what we're doing, and see what opportunities there would be to offer them improvements that would maybe justify the shared use of it.
I'd offer to buy some parking
And we haven't done it yet, but that's the recommendation: is we at least pursue that with whoever owns any of those parcels, and they're very limited in number, and see what they would do, because by my observation, most of it is significantly underutilized currently, and particularly at the shopping center. And so that might be a real opportunity to engage with those folks for maybe not the whole thing, but part of it. You know, if you talk to them about us maintaining the stop blocks and the striping and lighting, that's a heck of a lot cheaper than us trying to build a parking deck or buy property or anything else. So it's a good investment for the city.
That parking lot, is it one individual or is it split amongst those business owners?
Which one, Greg?
The ones, the old U-Save parking lot in front of the furniture place?
That's Royals, I think, owns most of it.
If they let anybody park there, they don't
Yeah.
restrict it at all.
Yeah, but just in case, I think we should offer the same to them as we would somebody who does restrict it. Biggest thing now is, you know, there are chains across some openings for valid reasons, and that's their right.
I think that's pretty much where a lot of people park to go to Bond Street, on that edge, and then walk through that little alley around.
Yeah.
They do,
And the Royals lot?
particularly when we have market on Bond. That's where most of them park.
I always park on the other side. I park on Central.
Yeah, and Central gets a good deal of walking folks from over. But Central, to me, is probably the poorest laid out currently for parking. It's greatly underutilized, and that needs to be addressed, and not in great shape, some portions of it. Well, today was to try to generate just what we're getting, dialogue, and see what the interest is. And if at some point we'd like to put together, have the engineer do more research on this, and we want to do it early enough that it's feasible to get at least alternate pricing in some of the bids that we receive when we do the
The most important
Ventura.
things we need to do, especially for those side streets, I mean, I'd like to see it all upgraded, is we need to talk to the private business owners, you know, starting out now, and see what options they, you know, what we can work on with them.
On the private lots you're talking about?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
definitely. But for the public areas, I think we need to go ahead and plan to do upgrades to those, and have those conversations with the private and tell them what we're going to do to the public areas and see what their interest in joining the party.
I do think it's important, though, you mentioned, you know, finding a means to allow for a delivery truck or our mail truck, or, you know, anything that's larger to pull off on Ventura as to not back up traffic. I think that is important for us to try to figure
Maybe a
out.
loading area or something like that.
Yeah, figure out where that can take place.
I agree. And you know, I've noticed the buses that come in to the museum chamber. We have to make accommodations for those, but it could be that since that's seasonal, that we do that seasonally, and it flips to vehicular parking during the off
I mean,
season.
currently, we have, you know, slanted parking spots,
Mhm.
sort of, on Central Avenue, and we just put out cones to
That's
you know,
right.
take the space.
That's all you
we
have to
need.
do.
But again, the whole street is underutilized, so it's never a problem, you know.
Well, obviously, on the deliveries, we want to make sure it's well thought out, so we don't have people calling the police and us having to do it to police the parking spaces. We want to have an accommodation where it's reasonable.
Well, and we want the traffic to be able to flow.
Mm-hmm.
You
And we're
know.
talking about Ventura now,
That's
right?
what I'm
Yeah.
talking about.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, but if you look at that, then you're going to reduce more parking.
Well, unless you do it on the side streets to the south, particularly where those businesses that benefit from that would want it, which is, I think, less important parking wise to the city, but more important to those businesses. So,
I got just a little something that's a little off topic, but while we're talking about resurfacing and sealing and lines, we need to seriously start looking at the city's properties, particularly this one. And,
they're included, and we've got money in the budget to do that.
well, let's expedite that because we need to set an example.
Well, we were hoping to take advantage of the pricing from this project if it's favorable to do those. Danny's wanting to do them.
It's in the budget. All these parking lots. We were kind of waiting on the Ventura kind of tied in together.
And also, if we're going to do lighting, we want to make sure we accommodate for that.
Across the street too.
Yeah, it needs some lighting upgrades. That is a dark area. Current lighting is greatly under what it needs to be.
So do you have direction? Do you know what the consensus kind of sort of is here?
Well, if you want to restate it, that would be helpful, just to be sure we're all on the same page.
I think in Commissioner Gardner can help me, but you want to look at the private business owners and to share parking, maybe help improve their lot if they will let us use their parking. We want to look at our city parking we own to improve the different areas, and again, may have to price it out street at a time. See what kind of, with lighting, with resurfacing, whatever, landscaping. And anything on Ventura, maximize,
Yeah,
you go back to the Ventura.
I think we need to talk to those south side businesses in the church and show them what the plan looks
We
like.
need to take this plan to those businesses.
Dean Duff to WCO.
Yeah, y'all have already agreed on that. Now, as soon as we get the,
And some input that we haven't thought of.
Yeah, I think
Well, and they might, and I got, like right there, you could add a spot. Like right there, you could add a spot. And I understand you gotta back up and have room and all that.
there's some tweaking.
In front of this building, you could put 2 spots between those trees, and I know that's squeezing it. And I know, but I just think we're gonna get a lot of, when you improve something, you can't please everybody.
Well,
I understand that.
Well, and I
But
can tell you that there's a nail salon there that we're gonna take away all their parking in front of their building, and you're gonna squeeze it to the grocery store,
Big farm.
which already has lots of, people parking there. So that's already gonna be a problem. Kane Nutrition doesn't have anything other than on the front side, but most of their people park on the side, and you're taking all that away from them.
Yeah,
So-
but
I think what we
again,
were trying
you're
to
adding
do,
public parking
like, have
safer.
outside seating for this little restaurant, have an outdoor atmosphere.
Yeah, it'll give them an opportunity to upgrade their operation.
Recommendation for safety was right here in this workshop. There's no doubt about that. That they had 10-foot travel lanes, 20 foot of parking, 7 foot of landscaping, and 13 feet of sidewalks on both sides of the road. So, and that did not take away the parking off on Ventura. I'm just letting y'all know that I believe it's gonna be an issue for the business
Yeah.
owners.
Well,
And we want to help business owners create economic activity.
And I think our goal was Tetra Tech was going to get to 30% design plans. This was a conceptual that we came up with to maximize the spacing, maximize the spaces. We took our transportation folks looked at it for just general distances. So once they get to 30% design, meet with the property owners and say, hey, we've maximized it. Are you okay with it now? This may not be maximized right here, or it could be, just based on clear zones and site distances and like that. So I think that's what Randy and Danny and I talked about. Once they have a set of plans that's been engineered and looked over by their staff, that's when we would meet with them. Because if we took this, it may not be as precise as their design. So
So let me ask something. If we took out some of the trees on the sides, and that would create more parking.
yeah, but
That bring
Sure,
the board to a consensus?
But the only problem with that is even the DOT design said proper brakes, because right now people drive through the parking areas. They use it as an extra lane. Some people do, a turn lane or whatever. You've got to have corners, and particularly that make people slow down and park rather than just drive through it like a drive lane.
I
and
believe
park.
I asked about the roundabout and over here the intersection of WCO, and then was told that for safety reasons they could not take out any of that green space. That was at one of our workshops that we had.
You talking
that's
about on
what-
this project?
Yeah, on the Ventura project.
Well, site
Good.
distance on it, there are requirements, and DOT we'd use their specifications to the extent we can for it.
What
but,
you're saying is get 30% of the design done, reassess it, go to business owners, and we can tweak it after that.
I know.
Right.
That one.
yeah, if we need to,
Well, Jimmy said, yeah.
yeah, if you say, hey, remove
They
that
ask
out,
for
remove that out,
parking.
you guys are okay with it,
We
then
can give them one, that's not
right, exactly.
movement.
Because of the
If we restrict ourselves
roundabout
now,
area there.
there's no movement.
Right.
And
Okay.
just keep in mind, and you can remind us, this is a grant. There is a deadline to get the bids and do the project, so, and we have plenty of time. I just want to,
We don't want this to turn over to.
we can't send it back too
to the
many
park.
times. But at the same time, we do want to get it right, so.
Well, we want to make sure the business owners have an opportunity.
Yes, we want to get their input because there might be opportunities to help them. It's not going to be 100% consensus for everybody to be satisfied. I feel fairly confident of that, but there are ways that you can tweak it. Whether I think that'd be the case whether you have the roundabout or not, to be frank with you, because some aren't going to be satisfied with losing anything or even changing anything. Some of the property owners may be adverse to that, but that is city right of way. It needs to be built to a standard, and I believe the commission will do the right thing if it comes to that. But we do want to give them something to see, but realizing it's not 100% final until we bid it and get it out there to the contractors.
Anyone from the public, if you have any input, we're welcome to it. I know we were going to send the RV ordinance back to the LPZ. We could do the same thing with this, just for input, just specifically on Ventura, not on the other.
Yeah, we can show it to them at their next meeting. No problem on that. The one good thing is we have money, we have a project. We're not just pipe dreaming. When we were looking at the DOT plan, we didn't really have a project, but we've made significant progress since then, and still got some tweaking to do. But that's a good thing that you got the opportunity to do it. So,
Okay.
all right.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, Dave.
Item 5 for discussion, I think, is just an update on the clarification of the beautification
Yeah.
status with the palm
Stay up there.
trees.
Oh yeah.
I
I know. Come on, Lynn. You're up.
Yeah, we had an impromptu discussion at at least one, maybe two meetings. We talked a little bit about it when we did the last grant acceptance. It came up, and so we just wanted to. I asked the engineer to put together a visual just so that everybody knows where we're at, and then talk about the foreseeable future just for clarification. So, Dave, you want to take a whack at first?
Sure. The on the right here is the past constructed phases. That's phases 1 through 4, from around Francisco to the west. Phase 5 is ready to bid right now. We have the plans, the permitted plans or the funded plans through DOT. We're preparing the bid documents right now to get that out to bid. There's 13 palm trees in the median for that phase. And as kind of a reminder, and it was brought up by Molly last meeting, these are in the median. DOT said, hey, you need to stay away from all existing utilities by, I think it was 20 or 30 feet, some big number. And this is where the median or the road spreads out a little bit, so we didn't have any room on the outside from edge of pavement to right away to put these trees and meet those clearances. So that
And
was
did we get that in writing from the DOT?
Yes. And Danny did.
Danny's got it,
Yeah,
okay.
I think so, but we'll pull it
I'd
up.
like to see that.
Okay.
Because even their Highway 27 plan from March of 2023 shows the palm trees on both sides of the road.
Yeah, sure did.
and even phases 1 through 4, we're on the outside because there's no median. You got to be on the outside.
Yeah, and the way they accommodated, as I recall or understood it, they hand dug or equivalent of those areas to avoid hitting those utilities, and were able to get DOT at the time before this policy direction changed to allow that to occur. Otherwise, we wouldn't have any in the first 4 phases.
So we weren't grandfathered in because we got approval.
We
the
were for
whole-
those, but
From
no.
A to Z, we got approval for from DOT, we got approval for all the phases, from railroad track to bridge. So we weren't grandfathered in when they made a policy change.
We
Not
haven't
that
pursued
I'm
that,
aware
but we
of,
didn't
but-
get a permit. That's for certain. All we got, we've been permitting it a section at a time, I believe.
And for grant funds and permits, yeah, the section at a time. So I don't know if they would have. I'll go back and look, Molly, to see if, and we can
Mhm.
email Daryl over there to see if there is that potential. But I think if we would have submitted something that violated that clearance, they wouldn't have permitted it.
Well,
Or
we
let
would
us
have
bid
lost
it,
the
but-
phase 5 funding if we hadn't moved it to the middle. That was clear. And
That phase 5 needs to be built by December 2024, which, like I mentioned, we're putting specs together, putting bid documents together to get that out very soon. Phase 6, the purple, that's been recently grant funded. It's $116,000 to get it designed and constructed, or designed, permitted, and then ultimately constructed as well. And then future phase 7, which is to the left here. The application is due October 1st. We'd like to finalize our draft application by mid-August to get that to Daryl for review. Daryl's with DOT for his review and blessing, and then get that in the door for the next funding period.
But 5, 6, and 7 are all in the middle.
Correct.
Yep,
And-
that's
and-
correct.
And then his second map gives you the view to the future of what we can do and what we mentioned at the last meeting in terms of the exterior boundaries of the right-of-way going forward for potential expansion of it, because there's nothing wrong with having it in the middle and on both outsides.
Yeah, so we're limited.
But you just said that we couldn't do it on the
Well,
outside.
we can't within the right-of-way unless DOT, well, they did make the caveat unless you get the utilities to agree. And there's 5 of them, Danny's told me. Whether that's as a practical matter, mutual, exclusive of itself or not, we don't know. But we can attempt to do that for future phases after 7, as well as approach, as I mentioned, the property owner, which, except for the new hotel site, is 2 property owners involved, and ask them or do it as part of their landscaping for their project, allow for an easement on the private property just outside the right-of-way to across that entire stretch on both sides to put in palm trees. Because it should be able to be done just like the rest of the town without impeding access, and it would just be a little farther off the road right-of-way or off the edge of pavement than if it's in the right-of-way. Which, as you go out there, the ditch lines and so forth are a challenge. They're going to have to deal with that anyway, and other improvements that might be made along the highway, because there'll be a joint aligned entrance wherever that existing crossing, somewhere in that area, that would be there. So those will be our 2 options. We can work with the utilities to see if there's a way to work any of that area or all of it, and if not, then we can work with the private property owner as they develop plans for the 2 projects and the hotel to try to incorporate it on there just outside of the right-of-way.
Okay, I'll go back and say what I said earlier. DOT approved our original plans from that railroad track to the bridge. I know they had a policy change, but they had already approved our plans. If now I'm hearing that the reason why we didn't go through the palm trees on the outside was because we had to work with the utility companies, did we even attempt to talk to the utility companies?
We haven't yet, but we can.
No,
we didn't have time to do it on the 5
On
because
phase 5,
6.
I'm not saying on phase 5 we did talk to several of them.
You did? Okay.
There were several that we couldn't get a hold of.
There's 5, correct?
Yes, yeah, there was
The ones that you were able to get a hold of, what did they say?
they identified their lines, and we shifted things to be clear of them. A lot of them crossed perpendicular, a lot of them crossed east and west, with some crossings north and south, but we were able to maintain clearance from them with the median alignment. So I'll go back and look at some of Andy's notes to see if
Can we go back and look at that? I mean, if we had most of them saying yes, why would we not pursue staying on the outside?
We just haven't yet. We didn't have time to do it for the grant that was about to expire.
But 6 and 7 we do have.
They said if one says no,
That's what he told us on that call. He said one says no, the others say yes. You can't do it unless you can meet the setback requirement.
for 6 and 7 we've got time to do that. We just got the funds for 6. We'll start pursuing now.
Well, 6, but it was designed for the median, so I don't know if practical.
7 may actually fall in line with development. I think they may be, I don't want to speak for them, but they may be open to that because it would really beautify the new
Yeah,
development.
I don't know why they wouldn't, because they wouldn't have to pay for the landscaping, so all they'd be given is an
May have to
easement.
wait till after that construction,
Well,
but
I don't know if you had the plans, Travis, once they've approved their design plans, we would know where openings are. I think you could avoid those, and that's really all that, because there's probably not going to be any other driveway cuts.
going in right there.
Yeah, the hotel's not getting one off of 27.
there most likely will be a light right there. We see phase 6 grant funding. If you look to the top of that blue tab, you don't see the median below that.
Right there.
That'll be most likely a light intersection. kind of right in the middle of that Grant 6.
Be a good opportunity to put a roundabout there to slow traffic down. And I hate roundabouts.
I love
Actually,
roundabouts.
DOT proposed one just out of town. Yeah.
Drove through a few.
We need one at Evercane and at 720. There's no doubt about that. That's where we need the roundabouts at.
Yeah. On the 27, no question.
Okay, any other questions on that? Okay, Randy, you were gonna update the culvert project?
Yes, unless the engineer or Danny have heard something new, I put in my memo what the last that we heard from the contractor, and so I don't know if anything's changed, that they were supposed to begin mobilizing this week and take about 2 weeks, and in a month be out of the area. Is that?
Yeah, I think the intent was they were going to mobilize. They said Wednesday this week, so sometime this week. And they said 3 weeks they'll be wrapped up. We gave them about a month, still within our original 3-month time schedule that we originally gave them. So they were planning on mobilizing earlier, and then that got pushed back with some drainage district discussion, which we hashed out. So they should knock it out here coming up this next week.
Okay, and any update on the impact fee status?
What I put in the agenda is the latest I've heard of. We've had communications. Travis put together the city's response for the addition of fire services to the study that was done. The county has contracted for an amendment to the project scope to include that. They're collecting the same data we submitted from all of the fire departments impacted, and that has been submitted on part of the city. I don't know the status of all the other fire departments in the county, whether they've all responded to that. And they were expecting within a couple of months to have the amendment to their plan, a report complete. That's a required report for consideration of this. Then it'll come back to the county commissioners, I guess, to schedule any additional public meetings before they go to public hearing on it. But it wasn't discussed at the last commission meeting last week. So that's all I have at this point. I don't know if there's any thoughts that any of the commission has had since your previous introduction to this, that you want us to pursue questions. I've asked for further discussion on law enforcement and whether they did conclude that animal services was not included in it, just law enforcement, which would encompass police and sheriff and communications. But they haven't had any further discussions on that. But I'd asked for further discussions on that and on the library, since the city is the operator or primary agency for the cooperative of the 3 libraries for future. Again, it doesn't impact operating and operating expenses, but it would impact future capital needs to those if the county goes forward and establishes the impact fees for those areas of service. I'll answer any questions if I know, and we will be having further discussions with the county and with their consultant, but it looks like they're pretty much on hold until the fire services update is added to the report.
So what's the timeline? I might have missed it, where we're at now, and how long does this process take?
Well, there's no deadline except any that's imposed within ourselves, that being the county. They have to have at least, I think, 2 public hearings on it, and had to give at least a month's notice before starting that to property owners. In terms of the service update for fire, that's going to take at least 60 days. That's what the consultant advised the county. And so within the next 60 days, assuming they've gotten all the information from all the fire departments, I anticipate they'll get a report back to the county with the fire services element added. And that's when I guess the county will have another discussion about going forward and what services they're going to include in it or not. And I, of course, plan to participate, be there for those and hear them. And any discussions we have administratively with the county administrator and staff on any of those questions regarding how does this work for law enforcement funding and for the library, I'll share those as I get more feedback.
Yes, sir.
Hey, Mr. Chuck, sir, can I talk from here, or do you need me to go?
Yeah, well, if you would, just so we have it on recording.
I could be a complete fish out of water here, and I saw a special meeting and workshop. So I didn't know if this was an opportunity to participate in the discussion or not, but as it relates to the Henry County impact fees, my name is Chuck Svirk. I've been around, resident of Henry County for 20 plus years. More in the county part, between Clewiston and LaBelle, if you will, in the county proper. Heavily involved in the old GDC, as some people knew of it, or used to be General Development Corp., which developed Port LaBelle, your golf course and the marina and 14 square miles of quarter-acre housing. It's been a slow process and many economic cycles, real estate booms and real estate pullbacks, et cetera, et cetera. Anybody that's been around and living in these areas for a while have witnessed and partook in those. So I want to make myself available, my expertise, my relevance, maybe contribution is a lot of knowledge of the builders that have come to the area and built. Probably in 2001 or 2002, there was about 1,000 homes, let's say, or maybe 1,200 rooftops in Port LaBelle proper. There's about 4,000 now. The most recent that I personally worked on for over 20 years, getting the infrastructure complete, is a subdivision, 4 square miles, which is only maybe 6 or 7 miles east of here of Clewiston, called Banyan Village. I don't know if anybody's aware of that, right on Highway 80. No homes out there. It got platted in 1972, 1973 until 2008. The county was it was arm wrestle trying to get the water deployed out there. They all agreed that it needed to go out there. When the developer went belly up, they didn't complete it, and you couldn't build on a quarter-acre lot unless you had portable water. So 2,500 people or so bought lots out there, bought a residential buildable lot that in fact was not buildable. So that was a big arm wrestle, and without going into a lot of history and a lot of problem, in 2008 that finally got completed, much to everybody's satisfaction or celebration, and then the real estate crash happened and nothing really happened. So at the end of the day, 2021 or 2022, the water being out there, we made and worked with the utility companies, the power company, Glades Electric, and got water lines extended out there. And then we also did a joint venture with CenturyLink and put fiber optics in the ground out there, believe it or not, out in the middle of nowhere. Fast forward to today, there's 220 homes out there, $100 million added to the property tax roll, et cetera, et cetera. So why am I here today? And I know this city Clewiston, which is a small demographics, but a lot of those people are buying these homes, work here, US Sugar employees, for example. So it really comes down to heartland counties versus coastal counties. The study that was presented to the county first, and I believe was presented to y'all, and it's going to be presented also to the city of LaBelle and also the hospital. All 4 people potentially have a stake in it, depending on the impact fee that's done. My humble opinion, and this is why I just wanted an opportunity to extend and offer some knowledge on it. Counties that they used for comparison in that presentation were mostly coastal properties. And the reason, their explanation for why they were mostly coastal properties was nobody in the heartland counties had implemented an impact fee. There were a lot of counties that considered doing it. Henry County was one of them. In 2012, implemented, and then they quickly rescinded it, because what happened is when the impact fee got imposed, the amount of permits and the amount of growth or whatever went to near zero, combined with the economic conditions. So the thing that I caution, and the thing that I'm concerned with, the median income, for example, for somebody in Henry County is $60,000 a year. That's $5,000 a month. Today's single family house, a modest house, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage is $300,000. $300,000 PITI with current interest rates the way they are at 7.5% is nearly $3,000 a month. This is 60% ratio between person's payment and their total income, so they don't qualify. Historically, banks want somewhere around 32%. So we hear it all the time, whether it's here in Clewiston or whether it's in LaBelle or whether it's another place. We hear about affordable housing. What about our first responders? What about our teachers? What about our workers? What about how do these people afford these houses? This impact fee, proposed at $17,000, almost $18,000, $17,968 to be exact. Palm Beach County only has an impact fee of $14,700. But what's Palm Beach County? Their prices of their real estate are 2 or 3 or 4 times as much as someplace in like Henry County. Their median income is 1.5 times what it is in Henry County. So I understand loud and clear the need for fundings in places. I've listened to now the presentation over the last hour and a half. Projects, funding, this money here, we got to do this, beautify, attract more business, et cetera, et cetera. But if you put essentially another tax, because you can tax the land, if a buildable lot is $17,000 or $18,000 or $20,000 for a residential lot, and you nearly want to tax the entire cost of the lot with another fee, it gets passed on to the buyer, right? There's nobody else way you can do it. $10,000 at 7.5% interest for 30 years is $26,000 added to their total payments. So at some point, whether it's a SHIP program, USDA funding, FHA funding, all these programs we put in place to help make it more affordable for a person, another impact fee, which 90% of that fee or almost 95% of that fee is for the schools and for the roads. The problem is, in a typical piece of land, you have 17 MBUs already. MBU, I think that's what it's called, but it's a sub-tax within the property tax. On a vacant piece of parcel of land 15 years ago, there were 6. You know, there was fire, there was school, there was county, there was this or that. But now we have these special group meetings and these workshops, and they say it's only another $300, or it's only another $30, or it's only another this. But pretty soon you get that tax to the point where it's $6,000 or $7,000 added to that property tax. So I know that's a lot to digest. It's a lot of numbers. You know, I'm an engineer by background. That's what I do. I just wanted the opportunity to get in front of you and just point out an impact fee, I think, would be detrimental to the growth. The consultants presented that there would be 300 homes minimum a year to 700 homes per year. They use skewed data, unfortunately, which is the last 2 or 3 years when interest rates were sub 3%. Everybody remember that pandemic? Money was almost given away. Money was free, so to speak. And then we had this huge surge in permits. Well, this huge surge in permits in terms of number of houses that CO'd county-wide didn't really decrease that much last year. And everybody said, see, interest rates went up double or 2.5 times. Let's look at what happened in the last 3 years. Property taxes have doubled in value. Not everybody's taxes have gone up double because a lot of people that are already in have Save Your Home, it's capped at 3%. We all know what's happened to insurance, if you can get insurance. Insurance past 15 years, you have a shingle roof, forget about it. So insurance has almost doubled in cost. And now, of course, debt service, which was 3%, let's say 2-3 years ago, is now 7%. These payments now that were $1,600, $1,700 a month for an affordable family or whatever are now $3,000. Not only is $3,000 beyond their budgets, beyond their median income, they don't qualify for it. So my humble opinion, adding another impact fee of $17,000 to add it to the bottom line, to add another $26,000 worth of payments, that's if you implement only 50% of it. And again, I'm not a politician. I don't understand how they're all going to present and make this decision county-wide, but I know the county needs your commission approval. They need LaBelle's approval. The school board, which is the most need of it, they have 2 MBUs taxed to it now to try and catch up. But I propose this, or I say this, even a $10,000 impact fee, which makes it less affordable, which then will stall real estate prices. We have in-houses work in progress to be built, 2 years absorption. So if we had 600 houses CO'd county-wide last year, we almost have double that work in progress. And you would say, well, see, that's proof in the pudding that the interest rates didn't affect it. Not true. What happens is the bulk of these houses that are getting finished out now, because of the supply chain and supplies, et cetera, were permitted and started a year and a half ago or 2 years ago. So in fact, if you look at new permits pulled in 2023, they were down 63% year on year from the previous year. That's right from the county data. So if it's already down 63% and an impact fee hasn't been added, that's only going to further accelerate it. So the data that they presented in their chart, which would be minimum 300 homes, didn't even make 300 building permits started last year. And we project, because of what happened in the interest rates in the last 6 months, now there's a lot of rhetoric, depends on who gets elected, et cetera, interest rates have capped, they're going to come down. Well, when they come down, maybe that will turn it back on. But more than likely, we'll have a further decline in permits because we don't have the absorption rate. So I just caution, it sounds attractive. Let's get a fee that gets another fee built up here. It can only be used by zone where it collects. But if you don't have permits being pulled and you don't have houses being built, you're not getting any fees. So is a one-time fee better, or is a fee in your property tax in perpetuity that you get forever? Is that better? If you take a tax of $6,000 on a typical house, a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, for 50 years, can't even do the math quickly off my head, I think that's $300,000, as opposed to an impact fee of $10,000 that's going to be parsed up predominantly between just school and road. And that $17,000 fee, 14,000, excuse me, hold on, I got a different chart. This is from the consultant report. Ooh, shoot, I don't think I pulled that one. I didn't pull it. I do have the slide sheet. It was 90+%. So there's only about 6 or 7% that's going to go to the library or to the fire. It's the other word, and it's in their report. They have the things. So again, don't even know if I'm in the proper place at the proper time. I saw workshop, didn't know what that meant. I thought if I don't show up, that's
the right spot.
Would not be a good idea. But I have a lot of knowledge, and I'm happy to address any kind of questions. And if there's something subsequent coming up, I just think we should look at the counterpoint instead of comparing ourselves to the coastal property. We'd all love our houses to be Boca Raton and West Palm Beach and Naples quality. That would be awesome. But the problem is, at the end of the day, somebody has to foot the bill. And I believe the people that are working in your town, the people that are at the heart of your community, the people that are running your business, don't make that kind of income, and they have to have a place to live. It's been crying since I've been here in 21 years, 2001, of people having affordable housing, and all it's done is become more unaffordable. So I don't understand really by adding more tax and more to the payments is how it's going to help the norm of the population. So I stand with a lot of vacant land. We have brought in developers like D.R. Horton. I sold maybe 300 lots to D.R. Horton over the last 2 or 3 years. We put up almost 1,000 rooftops in the last 18 months. But again, we were helped by the government with extraordinary history of my lifetime. I'm 60 years old. You couldn't get over 2.5% or 3% 30-year mortgage fixed. Where is that rates today? So while taxes, insurance, and debt service has doubled or tripled, people's incomes haven't doubled or tripled. And I'm just fearful and don't want us to see your tax base that you currently have depreciate or go down again, because we've already seen a 15% decline in prices just in the last 6 months because there's too much product available. 15%, yes, ma'am. So Banyan Village, for example, again, public knowledge or whatever, Golden Key, which builds a beautiful house out there. The houses they're selling for $340 or $350, they can't sell for $300 today. Our absorption rate is we're selling 2 per month. We have 130 permitted that are going to be available in the next 6 months. No buyers. So the only solution to that is to lower the price.
So shortly there'll be a big surplus in Henry County.
100%. It's already happening.
Port LaBelle and Banyan.
Yes, sir. And with that absorption rate going down at that rate, and again, the thing that was driving the absorption rate the most is the interest rates. Well, interest rates are higher. People just don't plain qualify. So I just caution that it sounds attractive and it sounds great, and that'll put a little extra coffers, in our funds. The projections they gave you were based on a minimum of 300 homes. We're already below that now. I don't know how by adding another fee is going to increase more houses and because that's how, in my humble opinion, that's how smaller rural communities fight their way out of this. You need more people paying taxes. You need a wider tax base, so you need growth. You need more houses. If you take a pizza, let's all go out to pizza, have a pizza. If we go get an extra large pizza as big as that table, one person picks up the tab. It's kind of expensive at one person, but if we all chip in, that pizza was all affordable and we had a good time. So property taxes aren't much difference. You have 40,000 taxpayers, but 27% or 28% are in poverty level. So you only have 25,000 or 26,000 participating. It's a rural town. It's a lot of agricultural land. We want all these services. We want improvements to the buildings. We want nice parking lots. We want nice palm trees. We want. But there's not enough people at the end of the day to make that up in the budget. The only way that happens is to get a bigger base, just like America, right? We want a bigger middle class. We've lost our middle class. So I think that's what makes this rural community tick. It's the power of the base of the affordable housing for people. There'll always be people that can afford an upgrade, and it is getting nicer, and the budgets are getting bigger, and nice projects are happening, just like presented here today. But a quick way to kill it and to stop it is to overcharge and have this product come on the marketplace, and then your prices fall 20%, and all the people that are, even your residents today that have houses, lose their house to foreclosure. What did that solve to anybody? And we've all seen it happen 3 distinct times since 2000 that I remember. You can't say it's not possible. Port LaBelle, as you just referred to in Unit 4, 3 times since I've been here, you could buy a single-family house in there for less than $50,000. Today, that same one, a frame house, 60 years old, with lipstick on it, is $200,000 again. That goes back down to $120,000 again. Also go to foreclosure. Battle down the hatches. And I don't know if it's a proper forum today. I apologize.
No, thank
if it's
you.
not.
Have you been to the county with your?
I have, especially Commissioner Iglesias. It was announced, on December 12th, and I know they had been working on a report for over a year. Here's another thing that I caution: they commissioned it for $150,000. It's a lot of money. It's how much this report costs. Over a year to be done, but now they want to hit an accelerator and get it passed as quickly as possible. As Randy just shared with you, they're now waiting for this one update. Then they want to advertise it, and then they have to do, I think it takes 90 days from the time they pass it or approve it to be able to affect it into law.
Is that because there's a fear of a decline?
Yeah, I just think they want to strike while the iron's hot. And when I went to the county and went to see some of them and I started presenting some of the current data, they're almost like, blah, 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 blah. Don't want to hear, because they just believe they are the golden child, that this is the next growth company, it's the next Palm Beach County, and it's just going to happen. And I don't know if that's true. There's a lot of Heartland counties that haven't implemented that impact fee for a reason. And again, here is fact. $17,968 is what they're proposing for Henry County. Now they're already talking about, say, hey, we may not implement 100%. We may do 50% or we may do 60%. The key is whatever they adopt as a percent, they can't change it for 4 years. So they're fearful not to get it high enough, because then they can't adjust it for 4 more years. But Palm Beach County, and I think we'd all agree on that standing here, Palm Beach County's average medium income and their average medium house is slightly higher. Their total impact fee is $14,700. Broward County, which is another one that they use as comparison, again, a coastal property, very, very expensive property, $11,000. Lee County, $9,500. I don't know where all of a sudden they say, hey, we're going to fit the bill and make it double in Henry County, and it's going to fly. So,
Randy, correct me if I'm wrong. The county doesn't need our approval.
There's some elements of it that concurrence might be required, but for the development occurring throughout the county, no, they can do that. But I'll get you more information on that, because that's one of the questions that came up, is what are the requirements for the municipalities.
yeah, see, it's convoluted to my understanding. It's because that you would be participating or get like some of the firefighters and
Yeah.
some of the other.
And we would have to, we'd have to participate in the collections. That's what the city did last time through interlocal agreement, when permits were sold within our jurisdiction. Those are the cooperations that are required in our party.
But like to implement,
To adopt it, they can adopt it. Particularly if
we
they,
don't vote on that.
particularly if they
we
did the
don't-
schools, the only thing they would need from us is the collection side of it.
Right.
The mechanics.
I mean, that's not to say we can't have an impact in it.
I think legally, again, I'm not an expert. I'm not a lawyer.
Well, we're
I'm
learning.
We're
It's
all
new
learning.
to
We're all
us.
learning together. I think legally, because I think the question was asked, like the city of Clewiston could not participate. They could still have an impact fee and not have the city participate in it.
Or vice versa. The city could do its own, and
Correct.
they wouldn't have to have it countywide. But but we will learn more in the weeks to come. And I really appreciate the gentleman coming and heard his presentation. But it's I hope he will share it with the other parties involved. And of course, I've heard some of the other perspective, and all of you, I'm sure, have or will, from people that look at it a little differently. But that's good. That's what we want. We want to hear all the perspectives.
So will you also go to the city of LaBelle?
I do plan to, and again, I was kind of waiting for it, but you kind of catch when it's advertised, and,
Yeah.
and I just did.
Well, we want to hear it early on because later it gets particularly.
Randy's point into his tribute. I did text today. I'm in and out of town some, and I thought maybe I had missed it because it's flipping an eye in the small paper when it's advertised. But Jennifer Davis, which is the county administrator, she did it. Replied to me today, and she did say, as Randy just did, they're going to wait for the update from the fire, and then they're going to hold a couple workshops. Because again, when I saw this and said workshop, I said, does that mean people from the public are going to come and contribute? Again, I apologize. I don't even really have a presentation. I have a folder that's an inch and a half thick, and I have a lot of knowledge because I've lived, eaten, breathed this for 21 years. But I'd be happy to come back in a more prepared state or whatever. To Randy's point, there's parts of it in arguments or that it's a great thing to have. But you have to look at and examine, I think, also from the affordability of what the price break point is and the cost of the house and the people that live in those houses.
I think it's important we don't hear just one perspective, because a lot of times we do.
I appreciate your time. If I can answer any questions, I'm on Highway 80, Country Homes and Land, CHL, just before you go into the town of LaBelle.
Yeah, I'd love to get your contact information if you got a card or something.
Right on the old golf course, as a matter of fact. Again, I didn't cause that. Wasn't my
Pass
fault.
by there all
Don't
the time.
shoot. Yes, it did. It was busted in 40 pieces.
Make sure
when
you
they
make
did it. We
that.
happened
Make
to
sure
buy
you make
one
it
with
clear to the
piece
city
in
of LaBelle that it wasn't you.
We're really proud of one thing that we did work very, very hard on helping happen. And Banyan Village was a belly flop since 1972, since they platted it. And there were over $30 million of taxes collected on it as a residential buildable lot, but in fact wasn't buildable.
Well, the north side of Port LaBelle is similar too.
Yeah, Glades 102. Yeah, it's got now. So, it's coming into the sweet spot. It's coming into what it was designed to be 50 years ago. It's coming into that affordable housing range. But if you think for 1 second $50 or $100 or $200 in a monthly person's payment doesn't make the difference between approved and disapproved for these people, I promise you. We have 2 years ago, 9 out of 10 that could come through the door, they could get qualified. 9 out of 10 today do not get qualified.
But,
Just for that reason, because that payment has nearly doubled on them.
well, not only
Happened.
not only that, you said insurance, the taxes, the interest rate, but we also have inflation. I mean, average families are paying over
Yeah.
$1,000 more every month. So
And then, so even if they can't afford to buy, it's in the rents, right? So when I came here 15 years ago, someone $1,200, it was the coin whether they were going to make the rent on time. Now those same people are having to pay $2,200 and $2,300 a month rent. So inflation is right. It's a problem. And again, the people's salaries haven't increased that same thing. And the argument is started says, well, the people that are coming from the coast can afford more, a little bit this, that, and the other. And we need to make sure the people that are causing the development and pushing us at the seams of infrastructure need to pay their fair share. But I offer this argument in the school of thought on that as well. If a person was in their house, let's say a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage, we call it a Madison. 5 years ago, that house was $175,000. Today, that house is $325,000. That person at 175 bought it, homestead exempted. He's paying taxes on $75,000. Maybe he's paying $2,000 a year taxes. That same person occupying that exact same new house today is paying $6,000 in taxes. So the new person that is coming, that is pushing that thing, is paying a higher rate because he doesn't get his homestead locked in $300,000 less than $50,000 for the homestead exemption. So they've got the same benefits, the same utilities, the same roads, the same schools, same, but they're paying 2.5 times in the taxes.
Yeah, but the buyer that bought at 175 shouldn't need to feel like they're getting preferential treatment because or the buyer that's buying at 325 or whatever number it was doesn't. I don't know. It's not like they have something on the previous buyer, like.
Totally agree. I mean, it's
like the previous buyer doesn't need to be penalized, is what I'm getting at.
Right. And how do you feel they are being penalized?
Purchasing earlier. Well, because with the market going up and the interest rates going up, the cost of everything else has gone up as well, So if we do need to build a new school, you know, for the on the western side of the county, the cost of that is going to be far more today than it was, gosh, even just 5 years ago, right?
I agree. But
So,
go ahead.
so the fact that they have to pay more taxes than the people who bought 5 years ago, I mean, that's just the market. Like, that's just how it works.
Yeah, nobody's disagreeing
you know?
with that, but I think at the end of the day, there's 60 some counties in the state of Florida, and Henry County is ranks 41st, 41st, or something like that. So they're in the bottom tier of total income or affordable income or whatever. And the part that I think rubs me a little bit with the report that was put out here is that they were comparing it to non-Heartland counties.
No, I feel
which
I
are
can see
strictly
that.
coastal properties, and their incomes are much higher, and the property's much higher. If you take a piece of vacant land, $250,000, and you assess them a $10,000 impact fee to get it, okay. But if you have a piece of land here in Port LaBelle, which is $17,000 or $20,000, and want to impact it with 100% the value of the land, the fee, seems absorbent to me personally.
But did I
can
not?
see that.
Weren't they asked by the county commission, the people who prepared the study, to go and look at Heartland rural counties to see what kind of impact fees? Or
Well,
if
just the
anything-
counties that have them, and they're not many in the whole state. They did compare them to some in the other parts of the state.
like Glades County, Highlands County,
They don't have them.
Okeechobee County. Are they looking at
That's what
implementing
county
them?
has
They
it.
did, and they report in when they presented the question exactly that was asked of them,
Mhm.
and no other Heartland counties that have implemented at this point. So the only one they could compare.
Yeah, there's a
to
couple
was
that are in the
was the coastal
process of
properties.
doing it similar to Hendry County and other parts of the state.
County might be looking.
There was
at it
one up
too.
in the Panhandle area that I think was doing it now, but there are not a lot of them. As was pointed out, a lot of them have never considered it until now because of the cost of the and the needs for their public service and enhancements. You know, building a new school, even though the county's been very fortunate because of their rankings to get substantial grant money from the legislature or from the state for it, that's very good, but it's only going to pay 40 to 50% of the cost. So you're talking tens of millions of dollars that are going to be a bill coming due, and the choices are going to be property tax, apply it to everybody, granted new homeowners.
Didn't they put in a half-cent
That
tax
0.5 sales tax?
to build schools with?
Yeah, but that's not going to touch it anytime soon. They're going to have to more than likely enter into debt, and so they've got to have some way of repaying that debt, and it most likely is going to involve some degree of tax increase or a combination of tax increase and
I feel like it's gonna
impact
come down to
fees.
taxing
you're going to be taxed
adding
somewhere,
taxes to your existing base or taxing
or
people who are coming into the area.
yeah, and that's and it's a valid point. You don't want to price point the development to where you kill it, but at the same token, is there a balance somewhere in there where you can do some of both? I don't know. You know, that'll be something that the decision will ride on.
To your point, Randy, the schools already have had, because they had to, they had no choice. They've added a second MBU. We already pay in a Portland Bell
Sure.
2 MBUs towards the school now currently.
Mhm.
And again, whether you live here for 10 years or whether you're new and you have 2 children, each household has 2 children, you're sending them to the same schools or whatever. So it seems like parity and whatever they paid towards that school seems equitable, fair. You're not going to get with 300 homes a year, you can do the math, or 200 homes or even 400 homes. There's not going to be enough tax that's generated by that's going to make up that delta to build that school between the grant money and what's there. So as Randy said to his point, that the answer is probably a hybrid.
Yeah.
But just to add the tax on, which if you take $6,000 or $7,000 property tax on this $300,000 house, which has been averaging 2.25% to 3% of the property value, on, for example, on the coast in Palm Beach County, your average taxes are about 1.5%, which your total real estate value is. So we're already like at the top of the Richter scale on what we pay in taxes as a percentage of the value of your home, and to just add anything additional fee to that, it just puts it out of reach for more people. That's all. And at the end of the day, so here's another thing that happens, my humble opinion, because I am a builder and this is what I do for a living. Let's say your average home owner with their average median income or whatever can afford a 1,500 square foot house. What'll happen is home building won't evaporate to zero. We know that won't happen, but there are times where the permits were under 100 or under 50 for an entire year. But what's going to happen is that family is not going to be able to buy a 1,500 square foot house. They're going to buy a 1,200 square foot house. and they're going to forego the garage and use that as living space because they have 3 children or they have 2 children and they have no choice. And then all their stuff that should go in the garage goes around their house. And then code enforcement 2 years later is coming around and say, look at all the junk in your yard because they have no other place to put it. And then because the price of the home is lower with the homestead, they're still not generating the taxes that they need.
Or there's 2 or 3 families living in that 1,200 square foot.
So I didn't come here to say bad impact fees, bad idea, this, that, and the other. I'm just saying that I found it unusual that they compared it to just coastal properties. And even if you look at the impact fees for that and what the fees are less than what they're proposing here to this county. So if you make half the income and you want double the fee, how does that work? You know, how does that qualify at the end? And if we put ourselves into where the housing just stops and it causes then the real estate market to fall, then your whole tax base drops to things. I would rather see someone get a tax, or the counties get, or schools get a tax in perpetuity and build the house than not to build the house. I mean, let's look at Port LaBelle, platted in 1972. 15,000 lots were platted. How many are built on now? 3,000 now, or 3,500, or approaching 4,000 in. So, and then the biggest lift in those homes have been in the last 18 months. And again, we could say, oh, it's because Henry County is this huge growth thing. Not so much. Everybody grew at exponential rates because a lot of people coming back down to Florida because the interest rates were exceptionally low and made it affordable for everybody. And there were cases that you could get a cheaper house payment than you could rent. Not the case anymore with the interest rates, what it is. But again, I don't want to keep everybody here late. I could talk about it for 15 hours. And I didn't know if it was proper for me to show up
Yeah,
or
thank
not.
you for the input.
But
No, thank you.
Simon.
We might invite you back.
I would
Yeah.
love to
Once
come
we get
back,
more
and I'd love to come
information.
more
Yeah,
prepared.
yeah, I'd rather hear it now than later.
On there. Right
will.
Yeah,
there.
put
Oh,
your
is it
number,
right here?
if you'll put your
Yes.
number or
Happy to.
email
Thank
or
you.
something down
And
there.
email and all that. Thank
Yeah,
you.
will do.
Mayor,
Thank you
that's
for having
all
me.
we had for this, unless y'all want to further discuss any.
Any comments?
We got one.
Oh, are you coming up? All right.
All formality. My name's Lisa Walker, and I'm here because I need a hobby, and I'm really interested in the historic and cultural sites of the community. And I read about how we had a program. Let me open it here. Section 98-81 in our ordinance. Purpose of this article is to establish the program and implementing procedures for the preservation of structures in areas within the city which are considered important to the city's historical and cultural development. I don't know if we do have a real program, but I am interested in being a part of that. I do give a lot of tours, formal and informal tours of the town. I know which building is our original First Bank. I know when, certain houses or homes were built. I know who's owned them. Anything that's beyond, 50 years in age is considered historically significant. There is a common misconception that if you register a building site or home site or property site under the registrar, then there's certain laws you have to regulate to, but that's not true. It's only just marking and listing it into the registry. And I think if more people were informed and whatnot, we could make more properties on the registry. And then also, if you wanted to regulate, you can do it at the local level to create ordinances to protect the integrity of these structures in our historical sites. And I would like to appoint myself to be a part of that. So that's all I have for now.
Is ordinance 9861, is that the CRA?
It's 9881.
9881?
Section 98 is your resource management. Referring to, and that section is going to be get those. There is an address and listing. Don't currently have any ordinances that like those. Just simply identify them and point them out to the historically significant.
Which we're getting ready to update the comprehensive plan, so there's some relevant conversation.
And we talked about the CRA advisory board, but Lisa, I think there's some vacancies on the CRA advisory board.
That is if you want me.
Okay, I think
I
you need to
have
fill it out.
Yeah.
some
there's-
time.
Fill out an application.
And some
I think
growing
that'd be
up.
something really good to bring up to that board.
Yeah,
too.
absolutely. And the fact is that Lisa, you were born and raised, well, basically born here and raised here, and you have a passion for the town. I think it's important that you get involved.
Thank you. I would like that. I do encourage, and anyone can have this printout. Maybe I should have printed more. This is the section 98-81 all the way, the purpose and intent.
Randy, if you could email that
Through and
to all the
through.
commissioners and
Go
to
ahead,
the
Sue.
staff as well.
Because they do have established here where you could present one that's registered as a historical site or property, and you get in a certificate of appropriateness, and that's where the property owner or whoever, I guess, is in agreement to maintaining and having. You have to go before the commission board for any alterations and whatnot, and it's just to protect our historic places. But, you know, there's a couple places around town I'd like to kind of do my thing and see if people are interested in registering. That's it so far.
I think we do have some places that are registered, and I'm glad you brought this up because
Yeah, Dr. Edwards' house, the old, I can't remember the names off the top, the Castle House.
Dean Duff's house, yeah.
Yep.
And then the Clewiston Inn, of course, is a registered site. And I think there's other places on Bond Street that are registered. The old post office.
Original
Yeah.
post office.
The second post office.
Okay.
It says original
like the
online.
Post office.
But this would include too, like, you know, I've worked with Miss Lee at the museum, and there are a lot of documents and photos of these original, like, historical buildings, and then just kind of uploading them and doing the correct archive process, where online, if somebody was, you know, in the Sugarland tour bus going by and hearing about, you know, why is this house significant, or why is the telephone building significant, or the post office building, and they can see for themselves, but it just takes somebody to, you know, upload and archive those things.
Thank
I
you so
can do
much for
that.
coming and
I need a
sharing that.
hobby.
All
I
right.
got a dog, but my parents took my dog, so I can't.
Well, we appreciate it,
Did
Lisa.
Thank
hand
you.
that?
Yeah.
Lisa,
Lisa,
if you
can
can
you
give
get-
that to me, or
Can you,
no mind. I'll make sure everybody gets a copy. Thank you.
thanks, Lisa.
Oh no, I have. You can have this too. That's the local. And there's from the state.
All right. Thank you, ma'am.
This one is from the
Appreciate it.
And I can email it to you too.
That'd be great. Thank you.
You have his email address?
Yes. We've exchanged a few.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you, Lisa.
Appreciate it.
Any comments? We'll start with you, Miss Barbara.
Very interesting day. I'm very interested in the impact fees, in any way that, you know, we can give input on why we don't need them, that I don't feel we need them, not with us desperate to bring, you know, families into our community. New homes, rent, whatever, you know. So anyway, I'd love to hear more about that.
Mr. Thompson.
Ditto. Appreciate you coming, introducing a new perspective. I'm excited that somebody from the community, especially a young person, is wanting to get involved with the city and do some positive things. Anyway, I can help. I'm a history buff. I like that kind of stuff. And look forward to our next meeting.
Right. Commissioner Haslett?
I also appreciate very much you coming and giving your perspective. That is not the side that we've seen, or that I feel like I've seen, you know, so that is good to just round out the way that something's presented. So thank you for that. And Lisa, exciting. Do what? Well, we're always happy to have you. And I'm excited to see these beautification projects taking place. While I don't know that they're all perfect and flawless and ready to roll out quite yet, it is exciting to see some of the stuff that we've talked about for so long sort of coming to fruition.
I know there was several follow-ups that I requested tonight, so I look forward to getting those, and I look forward to the ongoing discussion, and appreciate you bringing reality of what's happening out there in the market to us today, so that we can, look at that and know that there is an impact already on families, and we do want to see continual growth in our community. And how do we balance all that out but still pay for the infrastructure? So thank you so much for being here, Lisa. Thank you for being here. Doc, I know you put your name in for the advisory board. Thank you for being here, and thank you for investing so much in our community. I really appreciate that.
All right. Yes, I concur and ditto those things. We had a great Saturday at the ball fields. I know with our kickoff with our junior softball and baseball leagues, and tonight is opening night. If you don't have anything to do, go to the ball fields. There'll be a lot of people out there. And on a sour note, the racquetball court is disgusting and embarrassing, as are the other buildings out there. That not every building, but most of them have green algae on them. If we're going to let organizations use our buildings, then they're going to have to clean them. We don't mind doing some pressure cleaning, I'm sure, as a city, but I was embarrassed when I went out there Saturday at that racquetball court.
Yeah, the advisory committee looked at it, and we went inside, and it's worse inside. And so it needs some definite work, or eradicate it if we're not going to use it, because it's, as you know, it doesn't have a roof. It's
washed
yeah.
in the next few days.
It needs to be cleaned and painted, probably.
Or find a new source for it.
What's it being used at?
I don't know. The racket, it's
It's
being
not
used.
used. No, it's not in condition to be used.
Indoor rock climbing.
Let's start with a bath.
Yeah.
And then we'll move on from there. But anyway, other than that, it was a very awesome Saturday with seeing the kids and the parents, and it's looking forward to a wonderful baseball season. So that's all I have. And thanks to the parents and volunteers that helped clean it up, the Rotary Club and
it was
many
nice.
parents. And thank you guys for helping out. Okay, we are adjourned.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Commission. Good workshop.
Thank you.